Planet Dolan.
From shushing a weeaboo to spraying a kid with a fire extinguisher, the Planet Dolan crew reenacts some of the best true stories from our subreddit about the worst teacher you've ever had and the worst thing that they did. I'm Doopie, and today I'll be your narrator. Number 9 was submitted by Sir Blue of Barry. The worst teacher Sid ever had was his 10th and 11th grade IT teacher. One day, a kid got into a verbal scuffle with him because they ran out of RAM sticks for a computer he was fixing. He told the kid to stand out in the hallway, and after he left the room, went on a rant about how much a dumbass he was. He then proceeded to grab a fire extinguisher and sprayed the student with it. That student and his friends immediately reported it to the principal, but trying to get the full story, Sid was called in. Sid told her what happened, but that he didn't think the teacher really sprayed the kid. The next day during class, Sid's teacher ranted about how he betrayed him and talked to the class about how he hated snitches. He then moved Sid into a corner isolated from the class. When Sid asked why, he said it was because his search history disturbed him greatly. When Sid asked what he found, he pushed it off saying simply, "It's just too disturbing." He also prevented Sid from participating in the school's Cyber Patriot team, costing him a $15,000 scholarship. He told Sid's friend that he was a pathetic snitch that would only hold him down. He was eventually fired after calling one of the faculty members' sons a dropout asshole. Number 8 was submitted by That One Lego Brick. Andy had a teacher named Mrs. Haas who had made her cry in the 2nd grade. In 5th grade, they got into arguments at least once a week. One day, Mrs. Haas asked them to complete a maze. Being logical, Andy completed it backwards and finished before everyone else. "How did you complete it so quickly?" the teacher asked.
Well, it's easier to solve it backwards.
"I never told you to do that!" she screamed at the top of her lungs.
You just told us to complete it. I did what you asked.
Andy protested. "I told you to complete it. Why isn't anyone else doing it backwards?" she screamed again.
Because the rest of the class doesn't watch YouTube for 5 hours a day, I guess.
Mrs. Haas then banned Andy from class activities for a month. Of course, she made that the most fun month of activities for the rest of the class. Number 7 was submitted by Where's the Beef 420. In 7th grade, Ramona's science teacher was the biggest pervert she ever knew. He looked down the bras of every girl in the school, was caught watching porn when he was supposed to be teaching, and once even suggested strip searching a girl who supposedly had a pepper spray keychain for people just like him. The worst thing that she remembers was when her female friend went on one of the school-sponsored backpacking trips that he happened to be chaperoning. The boys and girls both bathed in the creek that was there. The only problem was that he, being the main chaperone, had to stay with the kids while they bathed to make sure they weren't having sex. Ramona's friend happened to have some of the biggest breasts in the school, and so she was one that he picked on. He snuck up behind her and wrapped his arms around her, grabbing each one of her boobs, and telling her to take off the sports bra that she was wearing. The worst part was, he was never arrested or even fired. The few times people tried to report him, he got them suspended. Number 6 was submitted by Popartro. Spinal Palm's high school principal was the kind of woman to side with the popular students. Every year she bullied him and the other unpopular students. Her main objective, to get them to drop out or move. One day, a teacher was pranking a girl at the school by taking her shoes and setting them outside. The girl and the teacher laughed about it, and then the girl went to retrieve her shoes. When she returned, the principal ran in and snatched her shoes, yelling, "I saw those outside! Those belong outside!" The girl tried to tell her that they were her shoes, but it was too late. The principal threw them far. Afterwards, the girl ran to retrieve her shoes, making sure the principal was not anywhere around. Number 5 was submitted by Hydrastorm4. Melissa's worst teacher ever was Mrs. Brenda. She had her for both math and English language arts. One day during a test, a kid was making weird anime noises and acting like a weeaboo, striking weird poses. Melissa calmly said, "Shh," and in return, the teacher put her on detention for talking. Another time, Mrs. Brenda was explaining something incorrectly in math class, giving all of the students false information. Melissa told the class the correct way to do the algorithm, which was for 2 grades higher than hers. Her teacher was furious, but put Melissa in detention for saving her butt and teaching the class better than she could. Number 4 was submitted by gremlinsGizmo. Honeybits' worst teacher experience was in the 3rd grade on her mom's birthday. She wrote a note to her friend who read it and put it away on her lap. Then a kid took it and gave it to the principal. It read, "Tell your mom to call my mom if Mrs. D is being mean to you because she yelled at me earlier for nothing." Mrs. D talked to Honeybits in the hallway asking her about the letter. Instead of reassuring her, she screamed, "Are you going to cry because I asked you a question? Huh?" Honeybits started bawling. She had a lot going on in her life at the time, and Mrs. D told her to come back in when she was ready to talk. 5 minutes later, Honeybits walked in and asked if she could call her mom. Mrs. D yelled again at the top of her lungs, making Honeybits cry for the rest of the day. Number 3 was submitted by Minty Chocolata. Dolan's 1st grade teacher was the worst. She loved every single student except him. If other students didn't turn in their work on time, they would have a chance to finish it at home. On the other hand, if Dolan didn't finish it on time, she would take his paper and pull him in front of the class, yelling at him. One day, Dolan was casually talking to his friends, and his teacher came up to him and accused him of putting gum under her desk. Dolan told her it wasn't him, and that he would find the culprit. He soon figured out that it was one of the kids who always had candy and gum, so Dolan tracked his every move. Even though he now had the evidence, he still got a 1-day suspension for lying. Dolan told his dad and mom and tried talking to the teacher, but the next day she treated him the same. During 2nd grade, Dolan still saw her in the hallways and would always glare at her. She just smiled like she hadn't done anything to him. Number 2 was submitted by DeterminedCinnabon. Pandora's worst teacher ever was her 5th grade science teacher. Since she had asthma then, she would regularly have an asthma attack. In class one day, Pandora had to get her books, but they were very heavy. So she asked a friend who sat next to her if they could get them. They nodded, knowing about Pandora's condition. She didn't have a refilled inhaler with her, so just sat there panting. Her teacher saw that she was still in her seat and said, "Go get the books." Her friend came back with the books and the teacher snapped. "You lazy ass! Why didn't you get the books?" Pandora tried to calmly explain that she was having an asthma attack. The teacher went berserk and yelled at her. "I don't give a shit about your asthma. Now you will put all the books away after class, and the social studies ones too." Her friend stood up, walked to the teacher, and slapped her. They both got a call home. Number 1 was submitted by me. So when I started the 9th grade, I was behind a couple of grades, so I was about 16 years old. This was my fault because I never did the work in school. I always hated school. And I went into homeschooling before, and I kind of just dicked around and played World of Warcraft the entire time. So I was way behind when I started the 9th grade. My 7th period teacher was super young. She was maybe like 26. Everyone thought she was hot because she was young and pretty, and she was very easy on us. But she always had sort of a stuck-up personality. I was never a kid that did anything bad, so I always turned in my work on time even after I missed a lot of days of school. So she didn't have anything against me particularly. Life was really hard at that time, and being 16 in the 9th grade made things extremely hard. I eventually made the decision to quit school. Now, I'm not recommending it, and I'm not saying it was a good thing that I did, but it was the best option for me at that time. I was having a lot of family problems and other personal issues that I can't really talk about. But after quitting, I still met up with my friends who still had that class. And they told me, she told everyone in the class to look at me as an example and that I'm going to end up under a bridge. Yeah, she basically told everyone that I was going to be homeless because I dropped out of school. How fucked up is that? To talk about me in front of all of my friends and everyone I knew while I wasn't there? So unprofessional. And it just so happened that a half a year later, she got caught with the DUI. And her mugshot went all around the school. Karma's a bitch. Huge thanks to the folks over on our Planet Dolan subreddit for submitting their stories. We have another question for you. What's the most annoying thing you've ever seen a customer do? Let us know in the Reddit page linked below and you might be featured in a future countdown. Thank you so much for watching and I'll see you soon.